Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's that time of year again, where YouTubers across the globe get to rank their top 10 games of the year. And this year in particular, extremely tough, as gamers were sweaty, trying to play every single one of these masterclass releases. Now, I did play a decent chunk of games this year, but of course we're narrowing it down to 2023 releases. And as many as I got to play, there were some I had to leave on the cutting room floor. Street Fighter 6, I'll get to it. Alan Wake 2, I am working towards it. Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Nintendo, I will wait 5 years for a sale if I have to. But even with a couple of games missed, my 2023 was jam-packed with incredible experiences, and I can't wait to get to it. But before we do, guys, as of the recording of this video, we have broken the 300 subscriber barrier.
Holy shit.
I do appreciate your continued support for believing in me, my occasionally entertaining, possibly insightful content. If you like the way I present my stuff, then please do consider subscribing. So let's actually knock out a couple of honorable mentions, starting with Diablo 4. Diablo 4 was actually my first attempt with the Diablo series, and it ended up becoming my second most played game of the year. I gave it 2 attempted playthroughs, one with my friends online and one with my wife via couch co-op. Right away, I fell in love with the visuals, the highly detailed worlds and cinematic moments. I love the dark and dreary vibes and the hours of story and lore videos I dove into regarding this series as a whole. But ultimately, the combat fell absolutely flat for me, constantly doing the same combos with the same 6 cooldowns over and over with no strategic thought was painfully boring. 2 attempted playthroughs, and I finished neither of them, but that's okay. You know, I learned a lot about the Diablo franchise, its history, its development, why people love this series so much, and so even if the game wasn't necessarily for me, I still think that's important. And my other honorable mention goes to Mali Medusa. Mali Medusa is an indie Zelda-like that pulls a ton of inspiration from the Wind Waker specifically. It features several dungeons, an open sea of sand to sail through, treasures to find, and so many interesting puzzles to solve. But I'm not putting this game in my honorable mentions simply because I enjoyed it, but more so because it was the first review code I ever received for this channel. It was really interesting playing a game prior to its official launch, especially with its puzzle-oriented nature, where a guide may have been helpful from time to time. I was totally on my own, got stuck on a tricky puzzle, Google can't save you, figure it out. But really, I was just honored to have the opportunity. You know, I mean, we're a very small channel here. We're humble over here, right? And for a developer to trust me in that way, I thought it was super cool. If you want to check out the full review, I do have it on my channel. I'll link it somewhere around here. But okay, on to the official list, starting with number 10, Hogwarts Legacy. Now, this is an interesting game to put on this list, considering I never finished it and felt that the open world aspects of the game were pretty cookie cutter and got stale very quickly. But there are a couple of primary reasons I feel that this game still deserves a spot. Firstly, this is a 40 to 50 hour game, and I would say roughly the first 15 to 20 hours featured some of the best video gaming I'd enjoy all year long. That's mainly because the opening portions largely revolve around Hogwarts student life, obtaining your wand, going to class, meeting students from each of the 4 houses, exploring the castle grounds, be it on foot or broomstick. This was the aspect of Hogwarts Legacy I was most looking forward to, and it's the one major aspect I felt they knocked out of the park. They really captured that magical feeling, and the castle itself is stunning. Just walking the halls with ghosts flying overhead or interacting with student body, suits of armor salute you as you enter a doorway, or the occasional hidden passageway revealing itself. I really couldn't get enough. The combat was also surprisingly engaging. Enemies would throw up different colored shields that required specific spells to break through. There was a wide array of abilities ranging from non-lethal stuns or debuffs to the deadly curses themselves. And best of all, of course, were the special moves that featured an insanely flashy animation. Never would I associate Harry Potter with a combo-based action combat, but they made it work, and it was incredibly fun. The other and more impactful reason for me to have Hogwarts Legacy on this list was getting to observe my wife play through the full length of the game. My wife is not a gamer. We do play games on occasion, but I could count on one hand how many campaigns she's truly seen through to the very end. but while she may not be the most hardcore gamer wife in the world, she is an extremely hardcore Harry Potter fan. So despite this being a fairly complex third-person open-world experience, she found her stride and blew the game wide open. This woman was even scrolling through guides to help her find the hundreds of collectibles scattered throughout the world. It was insane to me. I'd never seen anything like it, and upon the game's conclusion, it brought her straight to tears. An incredible thing to witness, I'll never forget. Number 9, Dead Space Remake. Remake done right. I remember that was the tagline for this release, and right alongside another 2023 remake in Resident Evil 4, the Dead Space remake stayed true to its roots while also fixing issues and adding content to an already beloved game. Environments were more diverse and detailed, weapons featured new alt-fires, and even the plot received adjustments which made players old and new feel like they were running through a fresh experience. And my god, the lighting and the use of visual effects like fog or steam, and every bit of sound design, be it music, gunfire, or the screams of the undead, do so much for the environment and horror potential. The extra detail put forth onto the necromorphs in particular is extremely noticeable as well. As they're being fired upon, you can literally see the flesh and muscle being stripped from the bone. It's grotesque, but also serves as a great indicator for the player as to which limbs are set for an easy severing. But while there are a surprising amount of new features, the tried and true gameplay formula of shooting off enemy limbs and using Isaac's kinesis abilities remains flawless and intact, and the necromorphs continue to be the most terrifying sci-fi creature in existence. The two major faults I have with the game would be the fact that the main objective is really just a never-ending series of fetch quests, overcomplicated ones at that, and that some of the voice line re-recordings fundamentally diminished several scenes in my opinion. Just listen to these next two clips. In the first one, you'll see that Dr. Kyne sounds like he's fighting to maintain his sanity, whereas in the second clip, he's just a normal guy.
She changed things. The church, they think the marker is divine, but they don't know what's happened here, what's been released. Look.
When they took the marker from Aegis 7, it woke the being in the core of the planet. Emilia, she knew. She told me it would return the beast to its slumber.
Otherwise, really great game and an awesome way to start off my 2023. I do have a full review on the channel. Feel free to go check it out. Number 8, SpiderMan II. I think of every game to come out this year, SpiderMan 2 was probably the safest pick of them all. I think most everybody knew exactly what to expect out of it, which I feel was the game's biggest weakness and greatest strength. I don't mean that as an insult in any way, just that these games are very much a known quantity at this point. I knew when I picked this one up, I was going to love the web-swinging traversal, that the combat would revolve around that satisfying Arkham-style dodging and counterattacks, and that the story would deliver some gut punches and great characterization. And yes, that was all very true. The game also managed to stand out in several ways, like the inclusion of the web wings, which I'd argue is the greatest form of open-world traversal I've ever experienced. Like many Spider-Man games before it, it's just a great one to boot up and swing around for a few minutes if nothing else. Playing as Black Suit Spider-Man and harnessing these extraterrestrial abilities is a dream come true for fans, and there was a certain segment of the game, including a certain alien creature, that became my favorite singular gaming moment of 2023. The music was stellar, the mocap performances and voice acting was on the level of any major blockbuster, and the story really felt like a great capstone of a 3-game saga. Spider-Man 2 was a near perfect Spider-Man experience that I thoroughly enjoyed from beginning to end. However, upon completion, I was just left wondering, where do you go next? Can you really make a better Spider-Man game than this? Do we need to change locations, get out of New York City, switch up the mechanics a little bit? I don't know, but Insomniac, I trust you. And wherever you take the series next, I'll be there. Number 7, Armored Core 6. Armored Core 6 won Action Game of the Year at the Game Awards 2023, and it deserved every bit of it. The visuals and speed of the gameplay is incredible. The sheer size and spectacle of each battle feels like it could be the final boss of any other action RPG, and the incredibly vast customization systems thrown in make each stage and boss fight highly replayable. Machine guns, sniper rifles, bazookas, homing missiles, laser beams, plasma swords, energy shields, and any wild combination of these things is a viable option. Such a well-crafted system that is sure to have you feeling like the most feared AC pilot in the galaxy. But believe it or not, Armored Core 6 became my #1 turn your brain off and relax title of 2023. And you may wonder how that is with the high intensity of its gameplay and dreary tone, but it ultimately comes down to how rhythmic the movement can be, and that the combat relies so heavily on muscle memory. You'll find your thumbs and trigger fingers move without thinking, and I can find myself completely locked into the spectacle of battle. My one major knock on the game would have to be its narrative presentation. And I say presentation because the story is there. Deep lore, factions to side with or resent, and characters that push things along, but this is all done via your radio. We never actually see another human character in the entire game's runtime. No major cinematic cutscenes to note. It's just voices and text boxes, and I feel like this definitely detracts from most interest I had in the story. I still paid attention and tried to keep up with the plot, but this quickly turned into a game that I was more into for the gameplay and not much else. But for my first major Armored Core experience, this was fantastic, and From Software shows that they're still one of, if not my favorite developer of all time, whether they're making a Soulsborne title or not. Number 6, Final Fantasy XVI. Final Fantasy XVI is a near perfect game. If not for one major flaw, along with a couple of minor grievances, it would have a shot competing for my top spot. But let's start with what I thought the game did right. So many amazing personalities are found in this game. I would say the story itself is pretty darn good, but the characters elevate everything around them tenfold. Clive was an amazing MC. His life is filled with tragedy and triumph, and I love him for it. Jill not only plays her part as a love interest, but had her own demons to tackle and definitely would have won the most terrifying waifu award at the Game Awards had that been a category. And once again, Sid. Dude, that sex appeal is too powerful. I'm a married man and you're made of pixels. It will never work between us. The voice acting in particular was incredible, with several standout moments that were seared into my memory.
It was me. I killed him. I killed Joshua. I killed them all. I'm a monster. And I deserve to die. So end it. End it now. Please. Please.
And the adventure spans such a massive amount of land and long stretches of time that it feels like an entire life was lived as the story progresses. Great music, as expected, pairs flawlessly with the incredible visuals and is all capped off with arguably the best combat system I played all year. Yes, it's between this and Armored Core, no doubt. This hack and slash gameplay is nuts. So many special forms and abilities to swap between on the fly, stringing together what feels like hundreds of hits as you watch for openings to spin those precious cooldowns. And the cinematics of certain boss encounters were unlike anything I've ever experienced, even if they were mostly just, glorified QuickTime events. So what are the gripes, you may ask? Why does Final Fantasy XVI find itself here at number 6? Well, for me, it comes down to the gameplay variety, or should I say the lack thereof. We're talking about a 40 to 50 hour long experience that features one and only one way to interact with the game. Throughout this adventure, the fighting, combat is literally the only thing you do. There's no chocobo races, no intricate puzzles to solve, no major activities tied to your exploration. If there ever was a game to benefit from a fishing minigame, this would have been it. But no, for 50 hours, you walk from A to B, watch cutscenes, talk to NPCs, and swing your sword. You could have the greatest combat system ever created, and it would be unlikely to hold my attention for 50 straight hours. And certainly by the end of this one, I was feeling pretty burnt out. So you either add in some additional content to break up the general gameplay, or shorten the overall length of the game. I do think there was some fat that could have been trimmed there. Do this, and Final Fantasy XVI may find its way into my top 3 this year. Number 5, Pikmin 4. Now this came as a complete shock to me. Aside from a few demos over the years, I had never played a Pikmin title before. But in 2023, I decided to do my first playthrough of From Software's Bloodborne, which left me in dire need of a happy and colorful game upon its completion. I took this opportunity to finally dive into the Pikmin franchise, and it was just lovely. For me, that is the perfect adjective to describe my Pikmin 4 experience. Bright, colorful, the world's brimming with strange alien creatures and plant life, challenging but fun puzzles, and a collectathon-style gameplay loop that urged me to 100% each level. Racing against the clock to clean up and uncover as much ground as possible was so satisfying. Your ability to multitask and keep track of multiple herds of Pikmin, all doing different jobs simultaneously, will be tested, and any miscalculations or ill-preparedness may result in tragedy. I love the comedy in the game as well, a story revolving around a race of people who thrive on space exploration only to find that they are terrible at space exploration. Every astronaut sent out to a neighboring planet results in a crash landing, and the rescue party sent after them also crash landings. This was certainly a game I took a gamble on this year, spending my hard-earned money on a product that I didn't even know would click with me or not, but I'm so glad I took that leap. Pikmin 4 was amazing, and I think I found another long-lasting franchise to dig into. Number 4, Metroid Prime Remastered. If you're familiar with me at all, you'd know for damn sure Metroid Prime Remastered was at least hitting the top 5. The original title is what got me into the Metroid franchise many years ago, a franchise that, depending on when you ask me, could be argued to be my favorite of all time, and Retro Studios treated this remaster with the utmost care and admiration. Metroid Prime has always been loved most for its ambience. The impeccable setting, soundtrack, and visuals all come together to create moments like this. And the remaster pushes those visuals to the next level, creating what may be the best looking game on the Switch system. The platforming and combat are streamlined with modern control schemes that feel buttery smooth. Swapping between different weapon types and visors makes you feel like the most badass and equipped bounty hunter in the universe. I also do need to gush on the non-linear storytelling for this title, using your scan visor to piece together the ancient history of Talon 4, as well as uncovering the sinister plot of Ridley and the Space Pirates. Aside from a few adjustments perhaps to the map, looking at you Magmore Caverns, this is a must-play Metroidvania experience. If you've never played Metroid Prime before, then you're treating yourself to an industry-defining title that has inserted itself into the greatest game ever made conversation. And if you have played Metroid Prime before, I don't really have to say much else. Number 3, Resident Evil 4 Remake. 3 remakes on this list? Call me a sucker for nostalgia. Regardless, I don't think anyone can argue the quality we see here. I mean, what is there to say? We're brought back to the GOAT Leon S. Kennedy, Luis Serra, Major Krauser, Ramon Salazar, and the list goes on. Iconic set pieces like the standoff at the church, the Del Lago boss fight, the freaking Iron Maidens, my god. It's just RE4 with better combat, with better controls and better visuals, and it was even given an extra spooky aesthetic by the Capcom developers. I just love everything this studio does with the Resident Evil remakes. The formula, the feel, the look, how everything controls is survival horror perfection. And yes, I will say that Resident Evil 4 Remake, as much as I love the original, is the definitive way to experience RE4, and I think that's about as good a compliment as I could possibly give. Number 2, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I am absolutely predisposed to love this game. Massive Star Wars fan, love Metroidvanias and Souls-likes, and absolutely vibed with the first entry of this series in Jedi Fallen Order. But fanship aside, Jedi Survivor just delivers in every aspect that mattered. Fun puzzle and platforming segments, new force abilities, lightsaber stances, which I really loved, a more layered and built upon combat system, and a wild star-hopping adventure with twists and turns that legitimately left me in awe. Such a wide variety of objectives and places to explore as well. Collectibles, base building, and even a farming sim if you're into that kind of thing. And everything from character models, environmental designs, and impeccable sound work brought that authentic Star Wars feel to every square inch of this title. I'd go as far to say as this is in my top 3 Star Wars games of all time, right alongside Squadrons and yes, even KOTOR. The game had one major drawback at launch, that being the bugs and performance issues, and while I cannot excuse EA for greenlighting its release in such a state, it didn't stop me from loving the ride beginning to end. And while it doesn't at all excuse the buggy launch, I am happy to report that the game is in a much better state, much more stable condition currently than it was at launch. But they've clearly got a third entry on the way to make this a true trilogy of games, and I am so much looking forward to it. I've also got a full review on this channel if you'd like to check it out. So we've made it to the #1 spot, and I'm going to give fair warning, this is kind of a cheat, a little bit, because it's a compilation of multiple legendary titles. But I think once you hear my explanation and understand my experience I've had with these games, with this franchise in the year of 2023, you'll understand I had no choice but to make #1 Metal Gear Solid Master Collection. Metal Gear Solid. For 30 years, I knew nothing of this franchise, the greatness that lie behind its title screens. Names like The Boss, Solid Snake, Raiden, or Revolver Ocelot had yet to leave their mark. Outer Heaven, Shadow Moses, The Big Shell. I knew nothing. But this year, I played in chronological order Metal Gear Solid 3, Peace Walker, Portable Ops, Metal Gear Solid 5, Metal Gear Solid 1, and Metal Gear Solid 2. And trust me, Metal Gear Solid 4 is on the docket. But truthfully, the story begins with my PlayStation Vita. I went and decided to hack this system, which gave me access to a massive library of older games for me to test out. Among them was the Metal Gear Solid franchise. Unsure if these games would ultimately appeal to me, as I do not typically gravitate towards stealth games, I figured this was as good a time as any to test one of them out. Needless to say, MGS3 absolutely hooked me. And I even have a review/discussion video on this channel, you can go check it out here. But upon finishing that title, I was in shock. Not only did MGS3 surpass my expectations, it nuked them into oblivion. And now that it's been a couple of months and I've had a chance to digest what I played, I'll come right out and say it, MGS3 is one of the best games I've ever played, point blank. So on I went, continuing down the rabbit hole that was this historic franchise, and I continued to find similar success with the rest of the series. I could talk about Peace Walker and MGS5, but of course we're just focusing on the Master Collection games here, MGS 1, 2, and 3, and so let's start with Metal Gear Solid 1. This was a game that I was most weary of due to its age. I was so afraid even if the story was compelling that the gameplay might fall completely flat or be too clunky and convoluted for me to trudge through. But I was proven wrong, for the most part. There were certainly moments that I could not stand, like each of the battles with Sniper Wolf, probably the most clunky and ill-designed boss fights I've encountered in recent memory. But other than the rare occasions such as that, I coasted through pretty smoothly, and the story did in fact deliver on all accounts. Metal Gear Solid 2 features the now iconic subversion of expectations with its opening chapter, and never slows down from there, featuring new gameplay mechanics and interesting characters along the way, and with far less frustrating moments as well. I do fully understand and respect the controversy surrounding this bundle, as Konami absolutely could and should have put more work to polish and turn these ports into higher quality versions of themselves, and the $60 price point was too much even for me at launch. Instead, I waited a month or so for that precious Black Friday $35 price tag. So is this a weird #1 ranking? Yeah, kind of. But I just can't deny. You know, despite the constant flow of critical masterpieces every single month, despite the epic battles between Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony, despite what you might feel is the greatest game to release this year, 2023 will always be remembered and defined for me as the year of Metal Gear Solid. Hey, what's up, guys? So I was going to put kind of the generic outro here. You know, how does your list compare to my list? You know, and vice versa. Like, subscribe, comment below. Let's talk about it, right? But as I'm actually recording this moment right now, as I'm in the middle of editing this video, and for the video, obviously, I was going back and collecting footage of all the different game trailers and whatnot. And I just got to say, going back and watching all of these trailers really got me, I mean, not to sound cheesy, but got me pretty emotional. You know, almost warped me back in time to where I was and how I felt, where my head was at when I played each of these titles. And it really dawned on me just how much joy and reprieve from the stressors of life that each of these games were able to give me, how much happiness, and really solidified just how much I love these games and just video games in general. So shout outs to 2023. It was a fantastic year for video games. I definitely invite you, hey, go watch some of the trailers of your favorite games this year and see if you don't, get that same feeling that I've been getting just while putting this video together. But I don't know. But yeah, I think this is a better way to end this video, man. 2023 rocked. Hopefully 2024 can continue on that same spirit. I doubt it can carry the same hype level. Guys, until then, like, subscribe, share it around, comment below. And yeah, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.